Hey guys, version 27 is here, and actually a few days before posting this I'm going to be disappearing for a break for a bit, so wanted to get this video ready to go and put out because this is actually, yes, probably the most fun update ever for me, for me at least. We'll have to see what everyone else thinks. But anyway, we'll jump through this quickly and point out some of the important things that are happening. First of all, boss balloons are here, and this new map is actually named after the boss returning in this update. This is actually a boss from the original Bloons Monkey City, where bosses were introduced, as well as BTD5, where it was added to later. So yeah, there's a nice little map here, swamp map. So I won't show bosses here because that's the thing you'll have to jump in and check out yourself. But essentially, yes, there are bosses, and that's the thing that we'll have to check out in this update. We also have Paragon tier towers, which are created by merging together 3 tier 5s of the same tower type. Currently, there is a Dart Monkey and a Boomerang one that were added in this update, and we'll let you guys work those ones out yourself as well. Sorry. Another big feature, co-op rejoining has been added for crashed and disconnected games, and it's not perfect, but it actually seems to be quite effective. We've been able to have our free play games in co-op actually go for quite a long time, with making it in the 200s to 300s. So yeah, so that's a thing, and hopefully that helps a bit. And finally, you may have already noticed it, I have this little Twitch icon here. We have Twitch polls integration has been added. So this isn't actually available for everyone, but if you are an affiliate or a partner on Twitch on the main menu, you can link your account, and we've moved the hotkeys over here as well as the Twitch thing. This is only on the Steam client, and yeah, you can run this feature now. So again, not for everyone, but if you are a streamer or you watch streamers, then that's something that you can interact with now. So just a couple bug fixes that are meaningful. So mob domination. It used to have essentially, with it. Okay. So with its attack that throws out and hits him, can I hit him from here? Yep. And explodes at the end. Essentially, that explosion would not happen if it capped its pierce. So that explosion will now happen every single time it throws the attack, even if it caps its pierce. Another notable one, so Bloon Impact. So this does not stun Moabs. It only stuns regular balloons. That's normal. However, what it was doing was, after hitting them, they were technically counted as being stunned, and this didn't matter for anything really except for the middle path mortar. So the middle path mortar, which does bonus damage to stunned balloons, was able to benefit from that and deal bonus damage to Moabs after they were hit by this for a short period, even though the Moabs were not being stunned. That has been fixed, which is a bit of a nerf to the mortar. However, we'll get around to this later. There is an ability on the tier 4 mortar now, so that makes up for that. We'll get around to that in the balance changes later. Similar thing. Actually, I meant to pull out a sniper. So the tier 5 sniper, it wasn't happening at tier 4. For some reason, with the shrapnel shot, it wasn't correctly doing like the asset and stuff, and it wasn't correctly stunning the targets with the shrapnel. But now it can stun groups of balloons with the shrapnel. So this one will actually be better with the mortars now, since it actually stuns them. But I mean, the tier 4 was working anyway, so yeah. So that's been fixed there. And last balance thing that kind of matters, Berserker Brew was not being buffed by faster throwing. I don't know how that happened. Stronger Stimulant was fine, but Berserker Brew was not. So the 301 Berserker Brew will once again actually throw faster. Yep. Anyway, onto the balance changes. First off, Boomerang Monkey. The Glaive Lord. This unfortunately had to be changed for performance reasons, but essentially, if you weren't aware, the main attack on the Glaive Lord, the actual thrown attack, not the orbits, it applies this dot, which does this. It's a unique dot. Oh, it was a unique dot, which basically was able to stack an infinite number of times. And this had a huge memory leak. Very problematic. And I mean, fortunately, it was not super noticeable for most people because they didn't play with Glaive Lord. And it was mostly problematic in co-op because it became massively problematic when there was multiple different Glaive Lords. So yeah, this could not really be fixed with any like reasonable method or whatever. So the dot on this attack has been reworked. It no longer stacks. It's not a unique special dot anymore. It doesn't stack. However, the dot damage was increased from 10 to 100. So it's 10 times as powerful of a dot. And what this essentially means is the dot is no longer super crazy single target damage. But if you set your boomerang to like close, and I'll delete these, set it to like close or even last or something like that, even put on faster throwing, you can stack this dot up on a lot of different targets, and it actually it's doing 10 times the damage now. So if you stack it on different targets, yeah, you actually get a fair bit of damage that way. So it's a single target nerf, a multi-target buff, basically speaking. The only thing is, if you set it to strong, you're not going to spread that dot to different targets. So it's kind of a strategy rework as well. You have to be thinking differently about how you use this tower. Anyway, still on the boomerang. Bionic Boomerang has had its attack speed increased, and it's just been reduced from a delay of cooldown. I never know how to say this and actually make it sound like a buff, but the cooldown was reduced from 0.28 to 0.238, so it attacks faster. This is just to compensate for last update when the speed was removed from glaives to sort of balance out glaives more. So now the 230 boomerang will just be kind of the same as it was, and it's just the 032 variant, which will be a bit stronger than it was a couple updates ago. Next up, Ice Monkey. So Snowstorm ability, it'll last 50% longer. It's been increased from a 4-second slow to a 6-second slow, and so now it's kind of, you know, yep, you can't hit DDTs without that. There you go. So now it's kind of like it's getting closer and closer to an alternate sort of use to Bloon Sabotage, which lasts longer but has a longer cooldown. So, you know, this one's a spammier version, this one's the longer lasting version that you cannot spam. And still on Ice Monkey, the absolute zero price has been reduced from 26,000 to 20,000. Just to make it a bit easier to get, since it's like a full support tower. Ballistic Missile. So there was an update back in 18 when Brickell was added to the game, where basically, before then, Ballistic Missile was always full map radius. It was then changed so that it was only full map radius once you got advanced intel. But it didn't actually use advanced intel. It just had full map radius, and this caused a ton of confusion, a ton of bug reports, and a ton of like annoyance there. So it wasn't worth it being different. So it will now just use advanced intel. So this is just like, and what that means is it doesn't have full map radius unless they're in range of something. So like, even if I have that tiny little sniper there, it can now attack within range of the sniper. And that sounds like a bit of a nerf, and it technically is. Although that being said, this isn't actually as huge a problem as it sounds like. As you probably know, if you use advanced intel on bottom path, like you still pretty much have full map radius. But what it does also mean is if you have camo detection now, it can thieve camo detection from other towers. And yeah. and have camera detection, because that's what Advanced Intel's main use really is, camera detection. But yeah, so anyway, so Ballistic Missile buffed in terms of camera detection, with a technically less radius sometimes, although if you have towers everywhere then it doesn't matter anyway. And finally, First Strike. As you probably know about First Strike, it hits a target for 10,000 damage, which is quite high. As you may or may not know, there is also a secondary splash of 300 damage. And this has been PS capped to hit 80 targets now. So, overall, yeah. PS. Next one, Centered Path. So this one, kind of very rarely ever useful. Has been, I guess, the issue with it. Now, you can pick where to center it. So, maybe a little more useful sometimes, depending on... Well, anyway, it's more strategy, which is a theme you're going to see with a bunch of these things. Yeah, it just allows you to kind of customize what you want to do with this tower a little bit better if you get this now. Next is Chinook. And so this is a kind of minor one, but like... Oh, whoops. So basically, if you redeploy a tower now, I can put it straight back down, like on the same spot. And this is useful if you just want to like correct a mistake, like whatever. Oops, like that. I didn't mean to do that. But like, say if you wanted to put another tower here and you can't fit it, whatever. Instead of having to move this away like that and then move it back again, and then put the tower in you want it to fit, you can just inch it that tiny little bit. Which is useful. It actually does come in handy if you're someone who makes use of Chinook. Like, yeah, pretty nice. Alright, catching up to the Mortar. Artillery Battery now has this new ability called Bombardment, I believe. Yep. And what this basically does is it attacks super duper fast. So this is potentially a bit broken even, but it's kind of like turbocharged for the Mortar. So yeah, you get increased attack speed as well as increased blast radius for 8 seconds. So finally, finally, you actually have an ability on the tier 4 Mortar, which has always been super weird that you didn't have that. And next on the Mortar, Signal Flare, just a little bit of a buff there. Did I actually remove it? I can't even tell because my balloons are so small. Yes, I did. Alright, so Signal Flare, it doesn't actually have to pop the balloons to remove the camo anymore. It still will. It's still, anything popped by it will lose its camo, but it also has like another radius which will just uncamo everything within like a radius of like 80 PS though. So, and this has no weakness, so it can remove black balloons. Can it hit DDTs actually? I don't even know. New TDT skin. There we go. So it can remove camo from DDTs as well, even though they're black. So, Signal Flare always kind of been, like, in my opinion, the single worst camo reveal in the game. Probably in a lot of people's opinions, I would say. But there's a couple contenders, so yeah. Next, a very minor one, but still kind of nice potentially. So your Phoenix will now copy the targeting of your wizards, so pretty simple really. It used to always target close. Now if I summon it, it will copy the targeting of my wizard. I set it to last, it's targeting the last balloon on screen. If I set it to close, it'll disappear because it ran out of time. It will go back to close. If I set it to first, it will target first. Simple as that, and it will update on the fly. No pun intended. Next, Robo Monkey. It is slightly more expensive, but it now deals critical hits. Yeah! So this was a kind of unique to the Dart Monkey, nothing else did it. It kind of makes sense for a robot with a special, whatever, cybernetics and heads-up display in its helmet and stuff to do stuff like that, I guess. So yeah, there you go. Robo Monkey now deals critical hits. Boom! And the Balloon Annihilation ability was buffed to from 1000 damage to 2500, so a pretty big buff there. The tier 5 version from 3500 to 5000, and for both of these abilities 10 extra radius. With the actual crits themselves, the crits are 1 in every 20 shots. The crit will always appear in the final 5 shots, so it's kind of reduced RNG in a sense. The actual critical hit increases the damage from 1 to 10, so it's about 10 times damage with no buffs applied. The tier 5 increases the crit from 5 to 50, so this guy here actually chunks, actually quite chunky. Yeah, it does work there. So another kind of strategy change. The sticky bomb will actually follow the targeting of the ninja now. This was kind of a complaint that people didn't like it always targeting strong, because you just flood yourself with a ton of small Moabs you couldn't handle if there was like a bunch of stronger things, because you just always hit the stronger things. But actually what you'd want in that situation is to take out the Moabs sooner, so now you can just set it to first and it will target those Moabs instead. Additionally, it's not just that, it actually has a bit of an AoE now. So with the normal damage, where is it? I think the normal damage is 500, and it now gains an AoE which will damage 100 damage to 10 targets. So it's not as quite as full powered as the initial target you're hitting, but it does extra damage to a bunch of different things. So if you get a couple stickies assigned all to a bunch of different targets, then you'll get some overlapping explosions there and get some interesting stuff. Now, Master Bomber, that buffs that AoE, the damage up to 300. So it has 1000 on the main target and 300 to everything around it. So as you can see, kind of picking out those. Actually, in this case, I probably wanted to be hitting those BFBs. I don't know. But yeah, not the best use case here, but that's something. So I don't know, maybe we'll see some different use for Master Bomber there. This might need to just see another buff in the future though, but it's interesting to see it in. So some ones here that I actually like. Spirit of the Forest, it just kind of gets stronger vines the closer they are, but they're actually it does multiple instances of damage, which is useful when you think of a few different things. But yeah, as you can see, there's kind of like 3 different colors and styles of vines. The vines on the outside, these are the normal ones. Yep. These do 2 damage and +8 to any multi-HP targets, so like ceramics and Moabs. Once they get into here, they take an additional 1 damage and +4 to multi-health. And once they get to here, they take yet another additional +1 damage and +4 to multi-HP. So in this centering, they take double damage from the vines basically, and in this middle ring, they take like an extra 50%. But it's not just straight damage, it's actually multiple instances of damage. So, for example, if I have something like Embrittlement, Super Brittle even, so Super Brittle makes anything hit take +4 damage. This means that you'll actually, in this instance, if I use these together, I'm not just taking +4 damage, I'm actually taking +12 damage, because they're getting hit 3 times. So that's kind of a cool synergy there. I would still say Spirit of the Forest is probably a little bit overpriced still, even with this, but the whole point is that this will make you think more about where you place your Spirit of the Forest. It's a bit more strategic, again. Still on the Druid, the Heart of Thunder now actually interacts with Avatar of Wrath. So if you've used Avatar of Wrath and you know about its special effect, the more balloons there are, the more damage it does. This never affected the lightning before, the Heart of Thunder, so it was basically useless. You would never want that at this upgrade. If you didn't get middle cross path, then you were not using this optimally. But now it does work on the Heart of Thunder, so send my classic round 98 again. Your zaps going through there actually do some work. And essentially what this means is middle cross path still going to be your best single target by far. Those fawns, like, they're just so good. But the Heart of Thunder will be a better multi-target depending on the situation. Like if you buff if you buff this with like Oban and CTA and Permabrew, then your fawns are probably going to be right up there still, because Heart of Thunder is kind of weird with how it uses Pierce. But still, this guy on its own, you get some better AoE damage using Heart of Thunder now. So maybe for some challenges that could be an interesting way of doing that. This is not quite as strong as the effect on the regular fawns. It's actually half as strong. So the regular one is like 1 damage for every 3,000 RBE, I believe. This one is 1 damage for every 6,000 RBE. So it kind of ramps up by half as much in the end. So Banana Farm. Monkey Bank can no longer be deposited. This has been restricted to the tier 4. Yep. Monkey Bank was the best farm, by far. And monkey deposits to the Monkey Bank. It's pretty crazy. A really crazy knowledge point that made you so much money. And IMF loan is kind of an underused upgrade that no one really cares about. So putting those cases all together, it's like, well, you know what? Just put deposits at the tier 4. It nerfs deposits. It gives you a reason to use the tier 4. Kind of a win-win situation there. An unfortunate change here, but another performance-related problem. Just due to the way that applying a ton of buffs to a Spike Factory works, the Spike Storm ability will no longer be affected by any buffs to speed. The base Spike Factory will be, but not the ability. It is unfortunate, and I don't particularly like this one myself, but it's kind of a thing that we had to see for now, and I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future. We'll delete those spikes. I don't like them being there. Okay. Adora! Yes, Adora has been buffed. Adora's level 7 sacrifice ability will now scale. Yes, finally. So how this works, how this has always worked, is you sacrifice something and Adora gets XP. It was buffed a while ago that you sacrifice something and Adora gets a brief attack speed and range boost. So you actually have the little buff icon on it now. And now this is being changed again so that this buff that she gets actually scales with the price of the tower. So a Dart Monkey versus a Super Monkey. Can I do a little test there? Anyway, so basically, for every $100 of the value of the sacrifice, the buff is increased by 1%, and it increases from a 10% attack speed and range buff up to a 25% attack speed and range buff. And once you get to level 20, this is just doubled. So it goes up to a maximum of a 50% attack speed and range buff. And 50% is fairly high. And keep in mind, this isn't just for Adora. Any Sun avatars will also benefit from this buff. So if I have a Sun avatar, whatever, I go Super Monkey here, this, and that's 2,500, so that'll cap the amount. Get that. My Sun avatar here gets a bit of a buff. Send a couple BFBs, whatever. It expired. Very sad. This will probably not be too... Anyway, see BFBs taking damage, sacrifice that. A little range Sun avatar here, eats them all up. Yep. So yeah. And obviously this is not just Sun avatar, this also affects the temple. So 50% attack speed buff to my temple. Yeah, starting to get somewhat decent. It was kind of weird that Adora, the temple hero, was not as good at working with the temple as some other heroes, like Brickell. Brickell? Yeah, so still 50%, it's not quite the same as Brickell's buff, but Adora herself is different to Brickell, and this gives range, which helps you if you need, get extra sacrifices and stuff. They have different use cases. Additionally, getting Adora to level 20, which I can't afford, will increase the duration of this buff from 10 seconds to 60 seconds. Yep, it seemed to make sense, given that Adora doesn't get XP anymore at level 20, so she's kind of losing half the value of the sacrifice. So yeah, so now the value of the sacrifice at level 20 converts completely from leveling Adora up to instead buffing towers. And additionally, her true Sun transformation, which you have to actually have at level 20 and then build a temple, was buffed. So the damage bonus that this grants was increased from 5 to 8, which isn't too massive, but a little bit of a nice damage bonus there. And she's still buffed. Am I gonna die? I'll send around 98 now, and I'll... Did I actually click it? Click now. So sacrifice this, up my abilities, and I actually get a bit of damage out on round 98, which is kind of nice. Just a little bit of damage. So anyway, that's the changes to Adora. I don't have the other heroes that were changed in, but they're pretty simple changes. So Admiral Brickell, there was a lot of problems people were having with basically her little army of kind of like Spike Factory little mines. They would all target one thing, like one pink bloom that goes by, and all just use themselves up, dominating this one pink bloom when you had like hundreds of them, wasting all their damage, which kind of sucked. Or even a red bloom sometimes. One single red bloom would make it to your Brickell, and you lose 20 mines. So basically that sucked. So they now have a short delay. So then Brickell places the mines. She places them, and there's a bunch. Something comes by. They don't all target at once. There is a 0.4 second delay between each one picking a target. So this is meant to be a buff. It could situationally be seen as a bit of a nerf depending on like if there's a rush that hits really hard all at once. But still, a 0.4 second delay is short enough that you still get quite a few of them going off. So we'll see how that plays out. Hopefully this is just an improvement in most cases. Finally, Sorta was finally changed. Actually, everyone, I mean, not everyone, obviously. A lot of players who don't go to the more expert, difficult challenges felt that Sorta was really overpowered. We actually feel that Sorta was not overpowered, and not underpowered either. She just kind of fit well. She seemed to launch into the game fitting into a pretty good spot. But actually... actually, the problem with her is just that she's built around having these kind of strengths against Bloons, which is suffering from different effects, different weaknesses. But this was just kind of completely unnecessary to utilize. She had so much damage ignoring these things, and they didn't actually add like enough that was needed. Whatever. They added enough to make a difference, but like, she just had so much base power that it kind of she destroyed everything, ignoring it. So what has happened basically here is, so level 13, this, instead of just increasing damage, this buffs her effect to deal extra damage there. And again at level 17, instead of buffing her damage by a ton, it now only gives her 1 damage, and her 17 now causes those other bonuses, the 7 and 11 ones, to also be buffed. So to kind of simplify it, if a target is slowed and taking damage from a damage over time, Sorta does the exact same damage that she always did to it. It's completely unchanged. But if you just have Sorta sitting there on her own, fighting on her own, then she does 3 less damage. She still does quite a bit of damage, so she can still destroy stuff, but hopefully this will force those synergies to actually be used with her, instead of her just being a complete powerhouse soloing the game. Yeah. And some things that are not related to towers, but in some final balance. Time stop. So this was kind of useless after around 100. Completely useless because it didn't work on the BADs. It didn't slow them. So nothing ever slows BADs. This is like a natural law of the Bloons TD6 universe, and it's never going to be changed. But given that this is affecting time and not affecting the speed of Bloons itself, and it's premium, it has just been given a pass on this, and essentially it will now slow bads. So it is not completely useless in free play anymore. Worth noting, it does slow your towers as well, so it slows all Bloons and it slows your towers. It's more of a time management ability, but it does slow your towers a little bit less than the Bloons, so it is a power increase. So yeah, if you like time stop, then good for you. If you don't like time stop, I don't know, maybe try it out. I don't know. Yeah, whatever. And the final thing, just look at the temple for this. So temple, it's just all your damage in free play, and it's meant to be, so that's not a huge problem. But basically, there's a lot of other towers you might want to use in free play which never got to see the light of day, and maybe they still won't, but the power of the temple has been brought down ever so slightly. Not the base temple, this is still the same, but the dark variant of the temple, which you get with Monkey Knowledge. What this did was it multiplied all the damage of your temple by 3. It has now been reduced to a multiplier of 2. So if you get the Dark Temple, it's twice as powerful instead of 3 times as powerful. But additionally, the free play formula itself has been tweaked to make Moabs gain health slower. So free play itself has gotten easier. Just so the temple's gotten weaker, free play itself has gotten easier as well down with that. And this is just to kind of balance down the temple, keeping the game similar. Honestly, probably easier, because with the amount that free play has been made easier, your other towers are probably going to add so much more than that. It's just going to be a bit easier now, but not too much different. But yeah, long story short, you probably won't even notice a difference. It'll just go over your head, and no one will really care. But either way, hopefully you enjoy this update. I really love this one, so I really hope that everyone has as much fun with it as I do, and get in and fight the boss. And yeah, a fun challenge that I give you here is just take on the normal boss and fight it with no farms. It's actually really fun. And there's a lot of strategies I've got for here which have been really interesting. But yeah, anyway, good luck, and I'll see you next time.